The alien woman who thought herself unattractive was stunned when a human. The first time Kale saw her reflection, she turned away in disgust. The crystalline mirror in her quarters on Darnath Prime reflected too much truth. Her broad jaw, the ridges running along her forehead, and the shimmering pale blue skin that, in her culture, marked her as common-born. Among her people, beauty was defined by symmetry, by delicate ridges, by slender bone structures. She had none of it. Kale was a soldier, tall and powerful, built for combat rather than elegance. Her shoulders were wide, her hands calloused from years gripping weapons. When she walked through the markets of Darnath's capital, she felt the eyes of others glance over her, then dismiss. Even among her own squad mates in the Planetary Defense Corps, she heard the whispers. Strong, yes. Reliable, yes. But not beautiful. Never beautiful. So she stopped caring. At least, that's what she told herself. But there were nights, when the barracks grew quiet, that Kale would lie awake and wonder what it must feel like to be looked at the way she saw others looked at. Her fellow soldiers who had admirers waiting after deployments, who received letters scented with perfumes. No one ever wrote Kale. And that was fine. She didn't need it. She was a soldier. She had her duty. Or so she thought, until the humans arrived. The arrival of the outsiders. The humans came as allies. The Confederation had brokered a pact after raiders from the outer bands began attacking fringe colonies. Darnath had a strong army, but limited starfleet. Humanity, by contrast, had ships that could traverse slip space faster than most races. When the first human detachment landed on Darnath Prime, Kale was among those assigned as liaison security. Her commander dismissed the assignment as escort duty, but Kale didn't mind. She was curious about the strange pink-skinned bipeds who had earned a reputation for reckless bravery, and among them was one in particular. His name was Elias Wren. He wasn't the tallest human she'd seen, nor the strongest. His hair was dark and always slightly messy, his uniform never as crisp as his commander's, but he had a strange light in his eyes, something between mischief and kindness, that made him stand out. Kale first encountered him at a briefing in the planetary garrison. Elias leaned against the wall, his datapad under his arm, eyes drifting around the room. When his gaze landed on Kale, he smiled. Actually smiled. Kale felt heat rush to her chest, though her species didn't blush the way humans did. She immediately looked away, telling herself it meant nothing. Humans were known to be expressive. Yet when the meeting ended, Elias approached. "You're Kale, right? Security detail?" She nodded stiffly. "That is correct." "Good. Guess that makes you my shadow for the next few weeks." His grin widened. "Hope you don't mind. I've been told I can be, let's say, unpredictable." Kale blinked. "You admit this freely?" "Better you hear it from me than from the disciplinary logs." She should have been annoyed. Instead, she found herself suppressing an amused snort. The weeks together. Over the next days, Kale found herself assigned to Elias often. He was part of Joint Task Force studying raider tactics, which meant long hours in and out of strategy chambers, occasional inspections of outposts, and sometimes patrols beyond the city walls. To her surprise, Elias talked. A lot, unlike her own people, who valued silence and efficiency. Humans seemed comfortable filling the air with words. Elias asked questions constantly about her culture, her training, the meaning of the markings on her armor. At first, Kale answered curtly, but slowly, she began offering more. And in return, he shared. He spoke of Earth, of oceans so wide he could sail for months, of cities that stretched into the sky. He described festivals filled with light, and food so rich they made Kale's mouth water, just hearing them. One evening, while they sat waiting for a shuttle back from a rural garrison, Elias leaned back on the bench, arms folded behind his head. "You know," he said, staring at the sky, "your people are some of the most striking I've ever seen." Kale stiffened. "Striking?" "Yeah, strong lines, sharp features, almost regal." Kale barked a bitter laugh before she could stop herself. "Do not mock me, human." Elias blinked, genuinely confused. "Mock you? I meant it as a compliment. You speak as though I am admirable, attractive." Her voice lowered. "I am not." For the first time since she met him, Elias fell silent. He sat up, studied her carefully, then said, "Who told you that?" Kale looked away. "Everyone." There was a pause. Then, softly, Elias replied, "Then everyone is blind." Her chest tightened. She didn't know what to say. The battle on the plains. Their bond was tested sooner than either expected. The raiders struck during a supply run outside the capital. Kale and Elias were part of the convoy escort. The ambush was brutal. Raider skimmers erupting from the hills, plasma fire raining down. Kale reacted instantly, drawing her plasma spear and activating her shield. She cut down attackers with precision, her training taking over. But then she heard Elias shout, A raider had flanked a convoy and aimed directly at Elias, who was pinned behind a transport. Without thinking, Kale leapt across the battlefield. Her shield caught the plasma blast, deflecting it just as her spear drove through the raider's chest. When the fight ended, the convoy was in ruins, but survivors remained. Kale turned, panting, to see Elias staring at her. "You!" His voice was breathless. "You just saved my life." She shrugged. "It was my duty." "No," he said firmly. "It was more than that." For the rest of the evacuation, Elias never strayed far from her side. Confessions. That night, back at the garrison, the survivors gathered in silence. Kale sat alone on the edge of the courtyard, staring at her reflection in a pool of water. The ridges on her face seemed harsher than ever, illuminated by the dim lights. She thought of Elias's words. "Then everyone is blind." Was he lying? Humans were known to comfort others with soft untruths. But when he looked at her, his eyes didn't hold pity. They held something else she didn't understand. "Kale." She turned. Elias stood there, a bandage on his arm, fatigue lining his features. Yet he still smiled. "May I sit?" She gestured stiffly. For a while they said nothing. Then Elias spoke, voice quiet. "You think you're unattractive?" Kale flinched. "Do not." "No, listen." He leaned forward, earnest. "Back on Earth, beauty takes 1,000 forms. Some people chase perfect symmetry. Others love scars, calluses, the proof of survival. Some admire softness. Others admire strength. There's no single answer." Kale shook her head. "Among my people, I am considered plain, unworthy. Then your people don't know what they're missing." She met his gaze, searching for mockery. There was none, only sincerity. "I've never met anyone like you," Elias continued. "The way you fight, the way you stand tall when others falter, even the way you laugh, though you try to hide it. That's beautiful to me." Kale's breath caught. For the first time in her life, someone looked at her not with dismissal, but with admiration. Her voice trembled. "You see me as beautiful?" "I see you as Kale," Elias said simply. "And to me, that's more than enough." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then, slowly, Kale allowed herself to believe. The aftermath. Over the following weeks, Kale and Elias grew closer. Rumors spread in the garrison. Whispers that a human and a Darnathy soldier were more than comrades. Kale ignored them. For once, the whispers did not wound her. Instead, she found strength in them. When Elias walked beside her, she stood taller. When he laughed, she felt warmth spread through her chest. And when he looked at her, she no longer saw a soldier dismiss as plain. She saw someone worth noticing. Their bond deepened through battles, through strategy meetings, through stolen moments in the quiet of the barracks. Kale began to smile more, to speak with confidence she never had before. And one evening, as the stars shone above Darnath Prime, Elias reached for her hand. Kale hesitated. Her hands were large, calloused, ridged with scars. But Elias held it gently, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. "You still don't believe me, do you?" he asked softly. She swallowed. "I am learning to." "Good." His thumb brushed her knuckles. "Because I meant every word." The ending. War eventually pushed them apart. Elias's unit was reassigned to another front, and Kale returned to her regiment. The farewell was quiet, shared in the shadows of the hangar bay. "I will see you again," Kale said, more promise than question. Elias smiled, that same light in his eyes. "Count on it." As the ship lifted into the sky, Kale touched the ridges of her face and, for the first time, did not feel shame. Because someone looked at her, truly looked, and called her beautiful. And she believed him.